Human intuition treats force as a one-way street. We see an active agent dominating a passive object, a hand exerting its will on industrial steel. This assumption follows us everywhere, whether we are physically touching something or observing a pole from across the room. We naturally search for the source and the target. Gravity is the ultimate version of this one-way pull. From our perspective, Earth is the giant actor, and the falling stone is simply the recipient. But classical physics rejects this entire perspective. In reality, there is no such thing as a lone force. Every interaction in the universe, without exception, is actually a paired two-way exchange. This is the core of Isaac Newton's third law. In common language, we often hear it stated that for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. This means that while the planet pulls down on the stone pulls up on the planet with the exact same amount of force. The arrows are identical, just pointed in opposite directions. This leads to a massive logical contradiction. If every single force is met by a counterforce that is perfectly equal and strictly opposite, how does anything actually move? If those forces truly canceled each other out, the math would always sum to zero. The universe would be locked in a frozen state of gridlock, unable to shift or accelerate. The confusion starts with the words action and reaction. They imply a chronological delay, as if the push happens first and the response follows a moment later. But a spring doesn't wait. Its resistance is generated the exact millisecond the hand applies pressure. There is no cause and effect delay, only the interaction. We represent this using FAB and negative FBA. They are two sides of a single simultaneous moment. This is a strict rule of mechanics. Mutual forces are born together, and they cease to exist together. You cannot have one without the other for even a fraction of a second. To understand why they don't cancel, we have to draw physical boundaries. The force of the hand acts on the spring, but the resistance of the spring acts on the hand. The paradox is solved by this one distinction. Action and reaction forces always act on two different bodies. They never, ever act on the same object. But we still have to explain the visual evidence. If the stone pulls on the earth as hard as the earth pulls on the stone, why does only the stone seem to move? Movement is about acceleration, force divided by mass. The force variable is identical for both, but the stone's mass is tiny and Earth's is astronomical. Dividing that shared force by Earth's scale yields an infinitesimally small acceleration. The stone's tiny mass, however, sends it flying. Equal forces do not create equal motion. The asymmetry we see with our eyes is just an illusion created by the massive difference in mass. Mastering physics requires one final shift in perspective. You must decide if you are analyzing a single object or the entire system it belongs to. If calculating motion for just body A, the hand, only external forces acting directly upon it matter. The spring's pushback is all that counts. It's a fatal mathematical error to add the hand's own outward push. That force happens on the spring, not the hand. But look what happens when we redraw the boundary to include both the hand and the spring. Now we are looking at them as a unified system. Within this unified boundary, those paired forces are no longer external. They are internal to the system. And because internal forces always occur in equal and opposite pairs, they sum to zero. Since these internal forces act for the exact same amount of time, the changes they cause to each object's momentum are also equal and opposite. They cancel out perfectly, which is why the total momentum of the whole system never changes. This balancing act governs the entire cosmos, from the smallest atoms to massive celestial bodies crashing in the void. Internal interactions sum to zero. A single isolated force is a mathematical impossibility. Reality is a perfectly paired web, where every action is anchored by its own mirror image.